Okay, thank you very much for being here to the second forum on European economic governance that is going to be dedicated this time to the governance of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is, I don't even have to mention it, a hot topic today. And we thought that it would be interesting to dedicate a session at least to analyze the different aspects related to the governance of artificial intelligence. For this purpose, I have a splendid panel here with me. On my right, I will start by my right, I have Concha Monje. Concha Monje is a PhD in industrial engineering, and she's a professor of robotics at at home, at Carlos III of Madrid University, and she also works for the robotics lab at the university as well. And she's a commentator and a writer on issues related to robotics and its role in science and society. We find her here time and again in different TV programs, in the radio networks, etc., etc. So welcome, Concha. On my left, I will start with Júlia Pareto. Júlia is a PhD in philosophy and research fellow at the Artificial Intelligence and Democracy Chair of the Florence School of Transnational Governance at the European University Institute, where she's working with Professor Daniel Inerarity. And she's also a research fellow on ethics of technology at the Institute for Robotics and Industrial Informatics here at the FESIC. No?
Yes.
Welcome, Júlia. Thank you for being here. Mónica Represa, she's a lawyer and an attorney at law and head of knowledge, research, and training at Allen, Overy, and Sherman. Do I pronounce it well, Sherman?
It's, you missed Mr. Sterling. It's Allen, Overy, Sherman, and Sterling.
And Sterling. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. I knew I was missing something. Okay. And she sent me an email. It's H, Mónica. It's H. I mean, there's no other explanation for this. Okay, thank you, Mónica, for being here, and welcome to Carlos III University. And on my very left, I have Dimitry Kochenov, who is a PhD in law and head of the Rule of Law Research Group at the Central European University in Vienna, Budapest, among many other positions and honors. No? Dimitry, thank you very much for being here. He's a current flyer. He's flying around the world all the time, so it's very difficult to have him in one place at the same time. That is connected to artificial intelligence as well, I guess. Yeah. So thank you very much for being here. Okay, I will start with this.
It became a hot. In the video, he showed a humanoid robot named Optimus moving around a laboratory. Musk titled the post Optimus Strolling Around the Lab, and it has already attracted over 70 million views. The footage, lasting 1 minute and 18 seconds, captures Optimus walking independently without needing any help. For the first time, viewers can see the robot making turns to both the right and left as it walks. This is a new development, highlighting advancements in the robot's mobility that were previously not demonstrated. Elon Musk recently shared a video on Twitter showing Tesla's Optimus Bot, a humanoid robot folding laundry. This demonstration is part of Tesla's ongoing development of Optimus, initially unveiled in 2021. The robot is designed for tasks that are unsafe, repetitive, or boring for humans.
Okay, so far so good. Once we have seen these three videos that I think they are they impact when one sees them. My first question would be addressed to Concha Monje, and it would be, how far are we from there to be generalized, popularized? By popularized, I mean, when are we going to have in our daily lives, as a common matter, robots like the ones that we saw in these masks videos and in the Amazon one?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It is a great pleasure to be here sharing this moment with you all. And specifically these three robots, I would say they are far from being here with us in a near future for many reasons, right? But in general, humanoid robots, they have legs, right? And when this is the case, it is very, very difficult for robots to really develop and perform correctly the tasks for a specific and clear reason, because of a stability, right? It is like in human beings, right? It is very difficult to keep the equilibrium while doing things, right? Something that for us is like natural because we have learned that from the beginning, right? For a robot, it means that body, which is something dead, right? You have to give a motion to it. And for that, you need several elements that they have to integrate so that the whole robot performs correctly. So you need, first of all, the sensorial system, which are, this is a set of sensors placed everywhere in the robot, right? To measure the force, to measure the position of the robot, to measure if someone is touching, temperature, whatever, right? So you need a lot of sensors distributed correctly, and they are giving you information about the state of the robot, the state of the environment in which the robot is performing, right? So, but this is raw information. So you need then the intelligence, so that intelligence treats those measurements, right? In a way that from those measurements you understand what is happening, right? I may have a sensor telling me I am falling down or I'm balancing from my equilibrium, I don't know, 20 degrees, right, to my right. But the sensor doesn't tell me that. It gives me another measurement, right? But it is the intelligence, the one treating that and deciding, okay, you have to correct your equilibrium, right? Acting on the other side, correcting that amount, right? So you need also not just the sensor, but also the intelligence to understand from the sensor the situation, right? And then the third thing would be the actuators. I have decided, or I have concluded that I need to correct my movement so that I don't fall down, right? So, and for that I need to, I don't know, actuate on my hip or on my legs or whatever, on my arms, right? And for these actions, I need actuators, right? And it takes a time for them also to actuate. I have some motors in the robots, right? You have seen that, those in the platforms, right? Like articulations, joints for my knees, for my toes, right? And they are commanded by the intelligence, right? But they need to act also very fast. So the integration of these three pillars is extremely difficult, right? Separately, they have to perform very, very fast and very accurately, but they also have to integrate, right? Because if it is not the case, the robot will fall down for sure, right? So in fact, I don't know if you have seen the presentation of Optimus. Did you see that? The first day Elon Musk was presenting Optimus, it performed badly, very badly, right? So after several steps, some technicians had to come and manage to keep the robot in equilibrium, right? So Elon said something like, the robot is learning how to walk. Maybe in 2 more weeks, he will have learned. It was like a year ago, and it's still learning, right? So this is why this is so difficult, because this is very, very challenging for a robot, especially with 2 legs, to perform correctly. So, of course, you will see amazing robots performing, but it is in a lab in a lab environment with very controlled, situations, right? But once the robot is outside, there are people moving, cars, a lot of changing environments, right? Or things changing in the environment, and it's extremely difficult for the robots to be.
Can you dare to give us time? 50-year time?
Well,
100-year time?
No. Maybe not that much, but it is difficult to say. I would say that if we see how technology is evolving right now, maybe in a decade or 2 decades, maybe we will see something more robust. Because in this case, I mean, of course, artificial intelligence is evolving very fast, but a robot is not artificial intelligence. We have to clarify this.
That was
right?
my second question. Can you clarify a little bit the difference between a robot and an artificial intelligence system and the connection between the two?
Yeah, the robot needs a hardware, right? It has a physical appearance. There is a body you can touch. This is compulsory in a robot. Otherwise, what you have is a computer processing data and giving you solutions or results, right? But a robot moves, and the results from that is a tangible result. There is a robot moving the table, there is a robot cutting a piece of wood, whatever. This is something you can touch, this is something affecting or changing the environment physically, right? So this is the reason why technology in that case is not that fast, right? Actuators, they are evolving, sensors, they are evolving, but it is more than just a computer with a lot of memory, a lot of processing capacity. We need more than that. Artificial intelligence is a part of a robot. Right now, the definition of a robot has changed a lot. And now there is a constraint for a robot to be considered a robot, which is it has to be intelligent, right? For that, it needs the artificial intelligence, of course, integrating or computing the sensorial measurements and translating that into an action, right, for the robot. But artificial intelligence, of course, can evolve without the need of a body. And this is a huge difference, and I think this is why artificial intelligence is evolving faster.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let us turn for a sec to the ethical aspects of artificial intelligence. This is to address to Júlia Pareto. My question would be, can we trust artificial intelligence with or without robots?
Okay, thank you, Antonio. Can you hear me properly? Yeah. I think this is a very interesting question to begin with when wanting to address like the, I would say, ethical significance of technology. As you probably know, in Europe, the concept of trustworthy AI linked to this kind of idea of responsible technology, human-centric technology is like kind of a slogan now. So I would say it's like the European brand when it comes to technological deployment and development. And this is actually quite interesting to see that, of course, there is something having to do with technology posing certain risks, which we all know, and assuming the responsibility of managing the risks. So ethics concerns normally the management of the risk, asking what are we wanting to risk or not, no? We should put some boundaries there. So this is why maybe we are talking about trust. We have to provide technologies that are aligned with human values in terms of the consequences that we get from them, and also like in terms of being developed in an ethical way. Okay. But now, what I wanted to ask you is, why trust? Why we just don't stick to responsible AI? And here is when I think there has been like a kind of a shift in our interpretation regarding technology with the advancement of artificial intelligence. We would say before, we would say like, let's make technology in a responsible way. Now we say we want trustworthy technology, trustworthy AI. And this, of course, has to do with the new chances opened by these intelligent systems that are now able, as Concha was saying, they are now able to perceive, to process certain information, to provide some outcomes, which can be recommendations or even like directly actions if you manage to make them be translated into actions through a robot system, for instance. No? And it seems to me that now we are starting to see technology as a doer, as an agent, and not only a mere means to something. So we are somehow breaking with this old paradigm of technology being defined as an instrument, as something that I may use for something that I can assess in an ethical way. I can say, oh, this use is a good use, this is a bad use, the purpose is good, the purpose is bad. Since now we were like thinking like this, technology should be assessed ethically in terms of the uses we want to give to it and also the goals we want to pursue. And now it seems that with the AI, we are starting to change a bit and say, okay, wait, because here we have kind of an artificial agent that does things. Not only is used, but it also engages in doing something. So maybe we should start talking about trust here. And this is something I wanted to discuss with you maybe later, because of course philosophers have for long said that this instrumental definition of technology was not really totally certain, because technology does not only enable me to do things, but also changes the way I do the things. It changes the way I perceive the world. It changes the way I act within the world, because it opens me like certain margins of action that I did not have, and also invites me to certain actions and invites me from others. But this is kind of interesting. It's something I wanted to raise today, that the word trust, the concept of trust, why trust, and not just responsible AI or something.
Or reliability, for example, things like that. I
Exactly.
mean, your point is a little bit, that if I understood well, that I would be able to use the word trust for a robot with artificial intelligence, but not for a car, for example, or an ironer, or...
Exactly. That it's surprising to me that we are now starting to talk about trust. It's somehow symptomatic of a shift in the way we understand and we define technology. Until now, so far, normally we have used this kind of instrumental definition that technology is like a means to something. So what we should be focusing on from a normative perspective is on the uses we are going to give to it, and also the goals we are aiming at, no? So this is what we should discuss in terms of good and bad, and that's it, no? And now, and this is something philosophers have been like warning against like for long, like it's not only a means, it shapes the way we see the world, it shapes the way we act within the world, it shapes the kind of relationships we constitute among us, right? But somehow this kind of instrumental thought was still there. And now with AI, it seems suddenly it all changed naturally, no? And now we are starting to think on technologies as agents, and artificial agents in this case, that also do things by themselves.
Okay, so I understand that you would agree, because I'm very critical with the idea of using trust for artificial intelligence. I am. Okay. But it's interesting to hear your views on this. We will turn back to that. Yeah. Okay. Mónica is directing the implementation of artificial intelligence in the law firm for which she works, and so it's kind of a use case, I would say. I am very interested in knowing about the challenges that you are finding and that you guys are finding, and this when it comes to implement artificial intelligence in a particular setting, in a firm, in an very important law firm. What are the challenges, the opportunities, the problems that you are finding? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in what you guys are doing?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Well, first, thank you, Antonio, for the invitation, and thank you to the Carlos III University.
You have to speak up, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Better now? Yeah, okay. I'm trying to make the contribution of a corporate sector, let's say, because I think I'm the odd one out, the only one outside academia. But I try to make my contribution as meaningful as my recognized and well-known fellow co-panelists. As you say, my law firm, Sherman, was the first law firm in the world to make available a Gen AI tool for the day-to-day legal work for more than 4,000 lawyers, okay, all across the world. And to give you a little bit of context, what we are using are two types of tools. What we call Harvey. Harvey is a platform based on the OpenAI LLM model, but specifically tuned, or let's say specifically trained for the legal work. And we started using it in December 2022, I mean, just 1 month after ChatGPT was presented worldwide, to give you a little bit of context. And also, we have developed an internal tool in partnership with Harvey and with Microsoft that allows us to draft, to review, to analyze documents, bear in mind, for example, a legal contract, using generative AI and also what we call RAG, that is Retrieval Augmented Generation technology. That means that we have, let's say, generative AI plugged into our know-how systems, in our golden banks of curated precedents, and that we are using it in order to advise our clients, in order to produce documents. Why we made this a strong bet on Gen AI? Well, first of all, because we think that Gen AI has come to stay. It's not a hype. I mean, there could be a hype, but I mean, we believe that it's going to change the way the provision of legal services it's going to develop, it's going to evolve. So we would like to be ahead of what we call lawyering in the age of Gen AI. This is the title of a very interesting paper that analyzes the practical impact on how law students perform legal work using generative AI tools. But also because, I mean, I think we think that is the best way in order to advise and accompany our clients. I mean, our clients are started facing the same questions that we did almost 1.5 years ago about governance, about security. So being at the front of that kind of questions, I think that was the best way to better advise them. And the things that we thought about it, and they were a lot, because making available Gen AI to 4,000 lawyers, it's a bit of a challenge, were related, for example, on internal governance in the usage of generative AI. I'm sure that you are all or familiar with the concept of hallucinations related to generative AI. This is a major concern for us. As you know, I mean, these hallucinations are inherent of the generative AI technology. I mean, if anybody...
You are not talking about the lawyers, right? You're talking about...
I'm about now, yeah. I mean, lawyers may hallucinate, but I mean, the problem is when we hallucinate, when we both, Gen AI and lawyers, hallucinate together. But I have to say that hallucination, even though it seems the contrary, is not inherent to lawyers, it is inherent to generative AI.
It's good to know, good to know.
So what I mean is that, I mean, you cannot avoid, you cannot disregard hallucination when you are using Gen AI. And this is, let's say, a risk that we cannot face to challenge, I mean, when we are providing advice to our clients. First, because it affects to the excellence of our work, to our advice, and also because it affects our liability, and this is something that we can go in depth later. So what we have done is to set up a very easy but effective internal systems of governance based on 10 rules, just 10 rules. I mean, we were discussing if it was necessary to implement, let's say, a very, I mean, long policy, very complicated. I mean, and we decided that nobody was going to read it. So we just use a decalogue of rules, very simple, quite catchy. For example, the first rule is that you cannot talk about Harvey, because at the very beginning, we have a strong confidentiality commitment when we started using Harvey. So, I mean, that it's the same as the Fight Club movie. I mean, the first rule of the First Club, or the Fight Club, is that you cannot talk about it. Also, you can't touch this. You are insanely young, but I mean, this refers to an MC Hammer hit. That is, you can touch this in the sense that there are some kind of data, that kind of information that you cannot put into our generative AI systems due to confidentiality matters, for example, or IT security matters. And also there is an obligation of every lawyer to flag to the partner, for example, in charge of the matter when they have used Gen AI in drafting a document or in arriving to a conclusion or providing any kind of advice. And also the other thing that we have considered, and I think that's interesting, is how Gen AI it's going to impact in our people, in our lawyers, in two senses. It was very important for us to convey the message that Gen AI is not going to replace lawyers, unfortunately. Unfortunately for the society, not, not for the clients. In the sense that, at least now, in the stage of technology, Gen AI is not going to substitute the critical judgment and the expertise of a lawyer. Okay? The second thing about the human impact of the use of Gen AI was how it's going to affect the way young lawyers precisely learn to be a lawyer. In the sense that when I was young, decades ago, I used to, have to prepare first draft of documents. I used to review, tons of contracts, to run due diligence. It was what we call low added value work. It was not sophisticated, but it was a great teaching method on how to become a good lawyer, how to develop certain skills such as reading, such as comprehensive, how to understand legal language. The trend is that young lawyers are no longer required to do that because they are going to have tools, Gen AI tools, and I can tell you that, Harvey, that is a legal LLM, works very well on that. These tools are going to do that kind of task and that kind of work for them. So how are you going to learn to be a good lawyer without that kind of training? And this is the thing that now keeps me sleepless at night, and how to help our young lawyers to develop that kind of knowledge precisely without having to do that kind of task.
You can jump into the each other's speech, conversation, dialogue. No problem about that. I will moderate you. But I have a couple of questions for you, Mónica. Very interesting takes on artificial intelligence with a concrete example. My first question would be, what does Harvey do? Can you give us an example
Yes,
of what it
sure.
does?
I'm sure that you are all familiar with Copilot or Gemini or even ChatGPT. Harvey, it is a platform that works pretty much the same. It's a legal large language model in which we can interrogate the LLM, the algorithm, for example, to ask if we are receiving, a financing agreement with a provision related to a warranty, please draft a paragraph explaining if this provision is pro-lender or pro-borrower, for example, and how it's going to affect, for example, an event of default on the contract. And so we prompt Harvey, and the output that we receive is generative AI output on that specific question. We can also upload documents, for example, a contract, a prospectus, and we can interrogate the Gen AI over the document. Please draft 3 paragraphs or 5 bullet points on the main key takeaways of this document about, bondholders' rights on this specific issuance, for example.
Once you have that output, what do you do with that?
Well, we integrate it in our advice. We use it for, it's not that we are doing theoretical questions. It's just because we have a doubt or we are trying, the purpose of this is try to be more efficient, okay? It's try to free up the time of our lawyers for, let's say a very long, tedious review of a document. So with the help of Gen AI, they can reduce the time they spend going through a document from hours to, let's say, minutes.
Can we go back for a while to this hallucination concept?
Yeah.
What is it about? It's the first time I hear about that. Forgive me
Yes.
about my ignorance.
No, 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 no.
No. I mean, for humans, I know about that. But
Well, hallucination is when an algorithm, a generative AI algorithm, gives you a nonsensical response. It has to do, it's inherent to the technology, and I'm saying that because, as you know, Gen AI algorithm works on predictive models. Okay, they are programmed according to the train that they have received, to the millions or billions of data that they have been used for the training. So they process language, and I'm going to focus on large language models and the type of algorithm because are the ones I am more familiar with. So what they are trying to create is the most probable response a human will give to that question. Okay? How do they arrive to that probable answer? Because they have been trained by millions and billions, in this case of text, of human text, so they can predict that, I mean, in a normal context, the more probable next word or answer will be that one, okay? What happens with hallucination? It's when the probability is not working well. Okay, I mean, sometimes it's not all about probability. So it's because, for example, you are not giving the right context to the LLM. I mean, when you are interacting, and this is going to help you with a specific LLM, but also with ChatGPT, it's very important the way you are prompting, because the more the context, the better the output. Okay, you reduce the errors in the working of the algorithm, in the probability, when you are giving more context. So, I mean, for example, and also it's important to manage hallucinations, the use case. For example, for legal research, LLMs do not work well, because when you are doing legal research, when you are trying to find a sentence, and I mean, what's the position of the Supreme Court in Spain about that legal problem, you expect a 100% accuracy in the answer. I mean, there is one sentence or one position. It's not something that we are going to debate. There is more or less a yes or no question. That's why Gen AI does not work well with legal research, but it works well with what we call creative work. I mean, drafting an email, for example, the main bullet points of a presentation, that kind of things.
Can I give an example of an hallucination? Sure. I don't know if you have heard about this particular one, but it says the train could not enter the tunnel because it was too wide. Right? Imagine the situation, the train wanting to enter the tunnel because it couldn't because it was too wide. Which was too wide, the train or the tunnel? So the Gen AI told you it has been improved. The tunnel, right? So this is an hallucination.
Yeah.
This kind of questions and contexts is missing for the AI.
what was the question? Can the train?
Yeah, you simply say to the AI tool, you simply say state the train could not enter the tunnel because it was too wide, and then you ask, which was too wide?
Okay.
And it says the tunnel. Mm-hmm. And no, it was the train, right?
Okay.
Or are you hallucinating?
I don't know. I'm a law professor, so.
So there are many people working on this, making or causing or trying to cause an hallucination in AI.
Yeah.
This is the way to improve AI. Okay. Working on that.
Dimitry, if you have not hallucinated yet, I don't know if you could tell us if you could tell us a little bit about the new European Union regulation on artificial intelligence. What you think about that? We all know there is a new. It's going to be approved in a couple of weeks, I guess. Regulation on artificial intelligence. It's been the European Union has been working on this for the last couple of years. And there is a lot of reference to trustworthiness precisely in this regulation. But I wanted to ask you a rather general question about what you think about this regulation. What do you think about regulating, legislating on the area of artificial intelligence in general terms, because not everyone is doing the same thing. The European Union would be like the first structure which would be thoroughly regulating artificial intelligence, but the US, as we know, has taken another route. What are your thoughts on this?
So this is absolutely not my field, that kind of regulation. I will not comment on the regulation, but I will give you the context, which I think could be helpful. I found some data on the state of high-tech industry in the European Union as opposed to China, as opposed to Russia, as opposed to India, as opposed to the United States. So if we just compare the United States with the EU, in the US, just the 7 leading law firms, I'm thinking in the wrong direction. So the 7 leading tech firms have a capitalization of 12 trillion. 12 trillion. In the EU, the 7 leading firms in the same field is 700 billion. It's 20 times smaller. The same kind of gap exists between China and the EU, and even if you take much smaller economies and much less advanced countries, take Russia before the war started, it had an overwhelming industry, high-tech industry, compared with the European Union. So then we are facing a very strange dilemma. The European Union is regulating something it doesn't actually have. What is absolutely clear from the current development, at least if we compare the prices of everything. Of course, the prices of everything is not the only way of viewing things, and I think you would have much better insights on that from the practical standpoint. But if we just look at the price, the European Union doesn't have any capacity which would be comparable to the US and China, especially. And in this sense, plenty of questions arise. What this regulation will result in the context of the absence of a leading industry. And I say it with a pain in my heart, if there is no, and this is the industry of the future, we don't have it. So we don't have this future. And when we don't have this future, it means that however we regulate, we will always be the cart behind the horse. And the horse will be in the US and in China. And then at a certain point, how far European Union regulation will remain relevant as the gap between the high-tech centers of the world and Europe is only growing is an open matter. So others can say we're imitating the EU and we will also regulate, but then that will most likely be the actually meaningful and actually significant regulation compared with what is happening here. There is an interesting recent paper on regulation versus innovation by Anna Bradford, who is at Columbia Law School. I just looked at it in the taxi when coming from the airport, and it's very interesting because she says we shouldn't actually oppose the two, because you can regulate while you innovate, and you can say goodbye to regulation and not innovate. Again, Putin's Russia comes to mind, but at the same time, she tries to offer. To answer the question why everything is going wrong in the European Union in this field, because it's a fail, and her answer is actually quite worrisome. She says we are failing because we failed the internal market, because simply at the level of innovating in this sphere, which is sensitive to everything, to immigration, to all kinds of regulation. The EU doesn't perform as an internal market. It performs as 27 separate regulatory spaces, and then she adds plenty of things on top of that, and then she says it's our failure of not achieving what we have already glorified ourselves for, and then it's not a matter of regulation. But then if you think about the failure of the internal market, to me it actually sounds as a regulatory failure on the main promise of what the European Union promised to achieve. And having said that, I was probably invited here because I wrote a couple of papers with Oscar Stein in the Netherlands on public law and blockchain, and public law and technology, and he's a very enthusiastic commentator of glorifying how innovation could actually change our legal ways, how it can improve the lives of people on the ground, etc. And he uses residence and citizenship as one of the examples. What if we put all our passports, all our individual identifiers on blockchain, then we will become non-falsifiable, and then we are all walking passports, and everybody's better off. And my response to that, I'm absolutely horrified, because the world is a system of racialized passport apartheid, because all the privileges is based on blood, and precisely all the dignity that we have when we speak about passports and migration comes from the failure of the system, which is deeply unjust. So if you perfect this system without rethinking it, then you're putting AI or you're putting any kind of technology to the wrong use. You're basically bringing down the biggest share of the population of the world, while glorifying yourself and turning yourself into a working passport. So that's probably not the way to the future. And here I come to the main issue I wanted to flag. To my mind, we need to go to the good old solutions to the good old problems of building a better future, and that is probably democracy, actually. So if we cannot, and this is what the European Union doesn't have, we cannot vote the scoundrels out. The European Parliament cannot determine policy priorities or propose legislation. So at the most basic level, in the absence of democracy and in the absence of an active, of a functioning, successful internal market, it's probably not a surprise that the European Union is performing worse than the Chinese and the US, because there is none of the benefits those two opposing poles have here in between, when we pretend that we have all the democratic values, etc. And in fact, the picture is much more complex. So I stop here.
Okay, so if I understand well, we should better have first a market in the field of artificial intelligence, and then maybe think about regulating it.
Just the internal market as a common working living space, as a functioning area of regulation where you are not discriminated based on the particular member state you're incorporated in, or you're a citizen of, or you want to implement technology. And in fact, and this is not my research. This is Anna Bradford, but I trust her. She has plenty of other little elements. Immigration, for instance, if she looks at the key investors in this kind of technology and where they come from. In China, immigration is zero. Nobody in the Chinese job market is from outside of China, and there we have one picture. But then in the US, there is a huge percentage of innovators who come from outside of the country. The European Union is in between, and it absolutely doesn't work. And then this is just an example of how being in between doesn't actually help you at all. When you're a democracy and then you are not a democracy, when you're an internal market and yet you're not an internal market, when you're immigration friendly and yet you're absolutely not immigration friendly. And then her last example are investments, that in Europe all the startups rely on the banks. European banking sector is the most stringent and absurd in the world. Sometimes people cannot even open a bank account, even though they are a citizen of the country where the bank is incorporated, and they have never left that country. So this includes also political parties, etc. There's huge case law on that. So if you rely on that instead of venture capital, of course, you don't have enough resources. And then China is another matter. So the EU is stuck in the in between, and that in between doesn't work at all. At least not in this field. But again, I would defer to those who know better.
Okay. I forgot to say that we're going to have the second part of this session today is going to be. I'm going to open the floor to you guys. So write down your questions, please, for the second part of this workshop. I don't know. If Julia wanted to react to what Dimitry was saying.
No, well, I just wanted to say something about the EU regulation.
Okay.
From an ethical perspective, of course, I mean, this is normative thinking, not applicable to the real life, because it's not vinculum. But, so as you know, in the European Union, the approach to regulate AI is based on risks. And then you have this classification. There are like the inadmissible risks, then the high-level risks, the limited risk, right? And then I don't know, there are like 4. So the thing is, even though it makes sense, of course, to try to identify which kind of risks are we exposed to and so on, my feeling, and maybe Concha here can also say something, because I think you can see that mostly in the robotics field, there are some risks that are like unadverted nowadays, mostly those having to do with something which is really new and has to do with AI, which is the social interactive systems. Those are right now categorized as high-level risks when it comes, or when they are meant to manipulate deliberately people, to influence their behavior or anything like this. But if this is not like this, if there is no intention behind it, then they are like limited risk. And this means the only thing that you must be sure that you can provide is to have this kind of information on the fact that you are interacting with an AI system, so provide transparency. Transparency is like the pill against the risk, right, here. And when it comes to, for instance, social robots, one of these new branches of intelligent robotics, and Concha, maybe because you are developing also like this kind of robotics for being useful in daily life, no? Like the ones that manipulate clothes and help you, with the daily life. The question is, are we really aware of the risks posed by social interactive systems or robots beyond the ones that have to do with intended manipulation? Because of course here you are first of all redistributing roles within the practices. So we have here the kind of consideration we must have is like a three levels. No? From an ethical point of view, there are like the micro level issues having to do with the well-being of the person interacting directly with the robot. Then we have the meso level, which has to do with how are you redistributing roles within the professional practice, imagine in care or the healthcare sector. And then the macro level, which is the one that nobody attends to, no? It's the kind of structures you are building in terms of power relations, in terms of capacities, which capabilities are you really giving people, not only functions, but also capabilities. And I have a feeling that when we talk about risks on AI, we stick on, first of all, on the dyadic interaction, so the risks that come from the using the machine for something, first of all, and we forget the structural dimension of relations with machines or with robots or anyway. And then we are also forgetting maybe the real risks of social interactive systems. And I don't know if you wanted to add something, Concha, because yes. I don't know if you are surprised when you saw the law, and where is robotics here?
Yeah. Well, you're totally right. I think, of course, there is a risk, but sometimes when we think of the risk of artificial intelligence, we think maybe on something like quite maybe more abstract or difficult to understand, difficult to state, difficult to address, right? But for me, the main risk when you interact, for instance, with a social robot, the social robot is designed to engage, right? To talk to you, to engage, so that you need it. You need it, you talk to him, to talk to her, because we also define the gender of the robot. Depending on the particular application, the gender is very important for the engagement, right? So, of course, this is for sure what we do, but the risk is when you lose your the understanding of the situation. When you trust the robot, whatever matters. I mean, what happens, right? So, a simple example, less sophisticated. When we use a platform showing us videos or films or restaurants where to go, right? We trust and we just simply go there because the platform selected that for us, right? And we get used to it all the time. So we somehow simplify our decisions based on decisions taken by a machine according to our tastes or whatever, right? This simple exercise somehow affects our life, our daily tasks, right? And in a sense that we become more and more and more like a simple element right? For which it is quite difficult to decide, right? Because we get used to, we don't put into practice our brain to decide some things, right? You were telling before, right, about this, right? So the problem here, the risk, is that we don't put into practice, we stop putting into practice current thinking, right, about things, right? And when we check what the social media is telling about something, about a particular country, a particular person, right, you trust. This is the absolute thinking about something. And this is because it says, it is like this, I trust this, I forget that there are other versions about this, right? So this is the real risk. You have to understand how this technology works. It is just processing a set of data. It is biased. This is biased, and this solution, the outcome, had been selected according to your taste, according to your political liking. Oh, yeah, that's it, right? So this is the real risk. It is a machine programmed to do something to engage with you, right? And for that, of course, I'm not engaging if I am if I show a different opinion, if I don't give you the reason, or I don't say you are right, right? So this is very, very risky. And I think for me, this is what we should be taking care of. Of course, the artificial intelligence is very intelligent, meaning that it can solve questions we take a lot of time to solve. It is a reality. Of course, we have also a risk because of that, of being deviated from the work, right? Being replaced by a machine that does the work we usually do, right? The rules are to be sure, or to make sure that we are not replaced by machines, right? This is also a risk because they do very well things, right? Better than we do things, right? But so there are several risks, but the main for me is that we are like behaving as simple machines, right? Because of the interaction with artificial intelligence. Because we are trusting that so much that we don't have to draft, or we don't have to review thousands of reports. And no, it does this for me. So we are losing the capability of being critical, of being, right, of confront the reality. There is something else telling this to us.
But where is artificial intelligence here? I just don't understand, because usually all our thinking and all our choices are based on some trustworthy sources. So you go to New York before the pandemic, you could buy a Michelin guide, you could get a Zagat guide. And Michelin guide won. Now nobody looks at Zagat. But and it was not artificial intelligence. It was these were the guys who tasted what different chefs are cooking. And then, of course, it would never occur to me to go to any restaurant which is not listed in that guide. So if they replace it by artificial intelligence, I hope they will tell it. But I think this is a general optimization issue. And the second question is, why do you think it's a tragedy if someone is replaced by a machine? Isn't it the most important advancement, precisely, to liberate human beings from doing nonsensical things? So as long as that machine is not dangerous for us, we should precisely strive to have as many people as possible replaced, because the goal of the society is not to keep someone employed at the pigeon level, but to precisely to liberate and to enhance the human capital. I'm asking this because if you look at science fiction in the 50s and the 40s, between the wars, it's all about the excessive amount of free time that humans will receive as a result of the success of robotics and precisely artificial intelligence that will liberate us from some absurd issues of folding laundry.
I think it is not a tragedy. Of course, I totally agree. I'm happy with artificial intelligence. I use it, and I think it is a good tool. But the problem is that it can only be successful if you count on equal opportunities. The problem here is that there are people who has no access to technology, to knowledge, right? So you have to regulate what to do with those people, right? So in an ideal world in which everybody has the same rights and the same opportunities, right? It is easier, right? But when the problem is that artificial intelligence is also generating a breakage, right? Of opportunities between countries in general, right? This is my opinion, right? Because I traveled and I see that there are some schools, universities, they don't have that technology accessible. So the way students learn for instance, using AI or not using it is totally different. So it is a gap. It's creating a gap. So of course, for those people, and if we think of equal opportunities, right? We have a problem. Do you agree, or don't you agree? So you don't agree with this?
I have three things.
Yeah, Clara. So let's
Sorry.
order this. Okay, Julia and then Mónica. Okay, and then I'll get back to you.
I have three brief ideas on what Concha was saying. So, does everything end with transparency? I think no. I think no, because for instance, in the case of social robotics, no, which are like artificial intelligence corpora, so they have a body which interact with people in a way that we can understand, so they follow our patterns of human communication in order to develop one tasks, which by the way nowadays are the ones associated to healthcare. So healthcare is one of the main domains of application of social robotics. They want to introduce these kind of robots to help with special, so people that has special needs, as people with dementia, for instance, or people that live alone and have some kind of dependency at homes, so that they can be used to that, to do this kind of tasks, daily tasks. Okay. And the main concern, if we stick to the law, would be interaction when it is meant to manipulate users. So here our concern in an ethical thought would be autonomy. Respect the autonomy of the user, respect the autonomy of the patient, the autonomy of the elderly people, no? Mm-hmm. The kind of idea we have here on freedom, or autonomy in this case, is this that is known as the positive freedom, no? Freedom to. So that I am really the source of my beliefs, the source of my decisions. Me is the one deciding what to do, and I choose the reasons for my actions. And we don't want the robot to, through interaction, interrupt this. This is our main concern when we say the risks of social interactive systems are limited to manipulation. What happens with other kinds of freedom that we also must be accountable for, like freedom as non-domination? The fact that not being able to not being exposed to arbitrary interference by other people. What happens when this robot is at home, by the way, and then the doctor, the family, the parents, so everybody has access to my private sphere. So this is also a matter of respect for freedom, but it seems that it's like not even considered as such, no? So these are the kind of risks, in terms of structural risks, in terms of power relations, in terms of arbitrary interference with my freedom of action, that are beyond positive freedom as the one that being the one that is like the source of my own actions. Also totally different from freedom in the negative sense as not being interfered by. There is also lots of concerns revolve around the robot, like interfering with my action. Like for instance, in this healthcare context now, when robots help you like eating, one of the debates is, should we sacrifice freedom or efficiency for the healthcare ends that we have? Meaning, if the user does not want to eat that, should the robot force him to eat that or not? Or if he wants to smoke a cigarette, should the robot? Those are the kind of concerns being tackled actually, which refer to negative freedom. And then we have the positive freedom, which are the ones really encompassed in the law when it comes to manipulation. But what about the other, not structural domination as something different? This was my first point. And then the other thing was on, I think, the need of reflecting exactly on the what for. And focusing the ethical reflection or our concerns not on the means, on the instrument, but on the activity. Because you were saying, okay, robots are gonna free up us from boring, so dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. This is the paradigm of robotics, no? And then you say, I put those in a care context,
And of course they free me from repetitive, boring tasks such as dressing people, giving to eat, so people to eat and so on. But is it so? I mean, is it so easy to put a line between nurture and care, no? The one that has to do with intersubjective relationship, that's really valuable care and blah, blah, and the other one which has to do with doing the boring tasks. Is it so, or are we gonna split something that cannot really be split? And I don't know where, because I think this is something that we should really engage in at a political level, and we should really open that to democratic debates. How do we want to reconfigure care now that we know that's not private, it's political? How do we want to really reconstruct this as a societal level, no? But we cannot take it for granted that it's gonna be like this, that they are gonna do the boring tasks and the repetitive tasks, no? Because it seems like somehow these kind of narratives that are reinforcing the status quo and never engaging in the critical reflection on the ends, and that was it. Now it's your turn, because I could keep on.
You are provoking me so much, but I will restrain myself as an obedient moderator and give the floor to Mónica.
No, I mean, it's related with a key concept that you all have mentioned, and that's some ideas. And I think that the first one is for the audience here, is that how do you plan to develop your critical judgment? I think that this is the big challenge that your generation is facing. And I'm thinking not about robotics or not only about robotics, but in general terms in the interaction of Gen AI. And I'm going to give you an example. It's related to the algorithm, the freedom in our choices, and the importance of the sources that Dimitry also mentioned. I mean, since I work in knowledge management, I mean, the relevancy of the source is very important. You have to bear in mind when you are interacting Gen AI that it is not empower Google. It is not an empower Hayes search engine. It is creating a response based on your input. If you answer if you ask the same thing to a Gen AI twice, it's not going to give you the same answer twice. It's going to give you a completely different answer, okay? And when you are receiving that input, and when you are using Google and you are relying on the source of the review, for example, of the how good a restaurant is based on human experiences by hundreds of consumers or your peers, for example, is it that source more reliable than the output you are receiving asking ChatGPT how good is this restaurant, or please recommend me one restaurant to go for dinner in Madrid? Because what ChatGPT is doing, I mean, you can combine Gen AI with searching functionalities, but in general terms, what Gen AI does is just to create a probable answer, okay? Based on the reviews, based on the data that has been used for their training, okay? So that's one question. The other thing is about what is going to happen, and if you would like to know if a content has been produced using Gen AI. And I'm going to give you an example. For example, think about a movie. Think about a TV drama show, okay? And you are aware about the conflict that there has been in Hollywood with scripters and actors. Would you be more interested in watching a film played and directed by humans, or you wouldn't mind as long as the movie is okay, is good, that all the actors and the direction and the script has been produced by Gen AI? Because we are going to be there. Think about what is the incentive for a small or medium company that they want to have a TV advertisement for their product or their services, now to ask a media agency or to ask real actors to prepare that advertisement piece. Known, because using Sora, it's going to be much faster and probably much cheaper. But what is going to happen in 5 or X years' times when most of the content we are consuming, it's going to be produced by Gen AI? That's going to put into worth and make more valuable the content that comes from humans? And if it's so, it's going to be more expensive. And if it's so, it means that Gen AI content, for example, will be for the majority of society, but only human contact, think about Scorsese, think about, I don't know, Brad Pitt playing a role, that would be reserved for those people that are allowed to pay for that. Because for me, these are the things that we should start thinking about for the future.
Yeah, when I said that, I mean the replacement of our human nature conditioned by what a machine tells us to do, or this kind. I'm very in line with what you have said. This was a good example. Thank you.
Dimitry.
Well, I liked what Julia said, that it's all about.
But Dimitry, when you said that you didn't agree with the equal opportunity thing and how it affects the learning, could you please be more? Or I understood.
Because
I'm interested in your
think,
opinion.
Your point only makes sense if you agree with the dominant status quo, which I don't agree on. Because if we look at basic inequality data, Milanovic, Piketty, etc., we know that inequalities shifted from class inequalities to space inequalities, which means that now very much depends on where you are allowed to live your life. So citizenship becomes the main tool of locking people in, poor people in poor spaces, with no education, with no access to any resources, and with no ability to improve their lives through migration, which means that the current status quo in the world, and it involves all constitutional law, all rights, citizenship, migration, is designed in order to bring down 4/5 of the world's population. They are not among us, and they're the absolute majority. They will never come. So then when we speak about AI somehow increasing inequalities, we should factor in that if you do exactly the same job, if you have exactly the same qualifications in the US and in Brazil, throughout your lifetime, you will earn 500 times more in the US. If you put the Democratic Republic of the Congo, this is Milanovic's data, then the difference is 5,000 times. So we already have the super citizens of the world, us, plus the Japanese, plus Americans, and we have all the trash, the losers of the world. Why are they trash? Because of the design of the system. You don't need AI in order to design an inequitable system. So our world is a deeply inequitable system which can only survive because we are in power. And we can tell those guys all the time that they're deficient. And it doesn't even we don't need to give any reasons. We can say you are not the citizens of here. So then we will kill you at the border, or we'll kill you somewhere else. So this is how the world works. And then if AI appears, and if it costs nothing, then what is downgrade for someone in California wanting to watch Brad Pitt but getting fake Brad Pitt could actually be an overwhelming boost for someone in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where content is generated differently. So I think everything depends on whether you look at all these challenges from the position of power and from your privileged position in the inequitable world, or you look from downside up. That's the only reason for my disagreement.
Anyone else would like to react to this? I will give you, has to do with you just discussed. We'll give you an example of something that happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I was consulted by a medical doctor who asked me about the following situation. They are in a hospital and his team is using artificial intelligence. And the artificial intelligence system advised the team to operate on a given person at a probability of 77%. However, the team had the impression that they shouldn't operate on this patient. How to solve these issues? Okay, so we are in a situation in which the artificial intelligence system tells you you have to operate. There is a 77% of probabilities that you would have to do it, meaning would be probably successful if you did, but the team has the impression that they shouldn't. But of course, they are kind of forced by the artificial intelligence system to operate. So how is this example playing around with all the ideas that we are dealing with now? Should we trust the artificial intelligence system, and even if it goes against our main intuitions, do whatever it tells us to do, or not? And what happens if, at the end of the day, they operate on the patient and the patient dies?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a bit in line with what you were saying, Concha. What do we really want to outsource or not, right? Like, which is the limits of what we are going to delegate to the machines. And you were talking about somehow things that were related to this autonomy and responsibility, like the moral skilling that may come with this kind of delegations regarding decision making. And here I think, of course, from an ethical stance, I would say you cannot take the decision right now. You should really, so the doctors in this case, I think they should pursue a bit more knowledge on how the machine did inform this decision, I think, before doing anything, Like, because as said before, technology is not neutral. It's not only that it has values inside, it's also that it changes the way we perceive the world. So it is affecting also the epistemic basis or the knowledge basis of our decisions, the material on which we inform decisions. And this is something important we should be tackling also. If we want to rely on AI systems as recommenders, I think we should really know how do they work, which are the limits, which may be the pitfalls. Not only of them have to do with the training data, there are also other things, Concha can tell us more about this. So maybe as a team there, professional team, they should really explore a bit more where does the difference lie in terms of opinions there, between the machine and the doctors. And afterwards, I would say, first, you cannot only rely on efficiency. There is a duty, if it's public service, to be efficient, of course. But it's not only, everything is not about probabilities. You should take into account other factors. We have to do with context, with the meaning of life, this passion in this case. So maybe they have to broaden a bit the scope of criteria, for consideration, which maybe they did already. And then what you cannot lose, and I agree here with Concha totally, is moral responsibility. You cannot abdicate from moral responsibility. So at the end, they should be able to provide an explanation of why did they decide to do what they did. So even if it's like following the machine advice, they really should be prepared, with arguments to give reasons for the actions. And this is what we cannot really delegate at all.
Yeah, of course. I think the absolute truth, yes, does not exist, right? So maybe the artificial intelligence there, in that case, there were many options, right? The AI tested, and it concluded that the best one was to operate on the patient, right?
77%.
Yeah. But I totally agree with you. You should understand why the decision was taken like this, and also trust your colleagues, right? Because the human nature is different, right? There are other considerations, expertise, which is different from the expertise from an AI. And this is true, right? So in that case, I would say that you should trust the human decision. Yes, no doubt.
Mónica, from a legal perspective, that poses a challenge, because if we get into the field of legal responsibility, that is a problem. That is a big problem.
Yeah, I like to frame this around the liability arising from the use of AI tools, the claims, the risk of claims, and if the human interaction may reduce it or not, or how it's going to impact. In my law firm, what we have done is that all the legal work is directly attributed to the law firm and to the lawyers. I mean, we do not flag clients that we have used Gen AI on a specific document or getting into a specific conclusion. Of course, they are aware that we are using Gen AI, as they are aware that we are using other kind of technological tools. But when we deliver an advice or a document or a contract, I mean, there is no watermark saying, be aware that we are using Gen AI, because if there is a mistake, the mistake is on us. But, I mean, to arrive to this decision, we have decided as well that the last call is for the lawyer. I mean, the last word on what to do or what not to do, go to a court, not go into court, negotiate or not, is the one for the lawyer. Because, I mean, for us, and in fact, all our, I mean, as an internal governance, all our Gen AI systems are designed so the interaction of the lawyer is required, okay, as a final step, a final validation step. But what it's interesting to me is that it is related, and I'm going to put the concept on the table, about the legal personality of the Gen AI, of the robotic, of artificial intelligence in general. I mean, legal personality, in the end, is the capacity to sue or to be sued. And, I mean, legal personality of non-humans is not a strange concept in law. We can think about corporations, for example. We're very aware about legal personality of corporations. I mean, I know that you are all thinking, okay, corporations is not the same because, I mean, corporation is precisely used to limit liability of individuals and as well, I mean, for a specific purpose, corporate purpose. But think, for example, in New Zealand, the government has recognized legal personality to a river, okay, because it was part of the settlement agreement with the Maori people. I think that we are far from thinking about legal personality of Gen AI, but where it is now being debated is that, for example, we can recognize certain rights that are related to legal personality to Gen AI system. I'm not sure if you are aware of the claim that Dr. Thaler is doing regarding Davos. Davos is an LLM and a Gen AI tool, and this AI pioneer is trying to register patents in the name of the Gen AI. Okay? The last ruling from the UK court, where there was the claim submitted, rejected the concept. But that was because they were going into the UK statute, and within the definition of inventor, Davos, that is a Gen AI tool, does not fit well. I mean, it was due to a quite technical argument. But, I mean, they skipped the debate on if we can attribute rights, such as, for example, IP rights to the content that has been created directly by an algorithm of generative AI. And my final remark is that we are quite aware of the risk of using this kind of systems, but what about the risk of not using this kind of systems? And I'm going to give you two examples. For us, for example, in the firm, when we run what we call a discovery exercise in the context of a litigation or a claim, and we need to go through documents, tons of documents in a due diligence, what we do, I mean, since it is impossible to complete the job, I mean, within a tight deadline, we use a sample of documents. We choose, I mean, between, I don't know, 100 documents. We review those, and we make a disclaimer saying, okay, our review is just, I mean, completed over this sample of documents. But what about if the contingency of this transaction, of the key piece for that claim, is in the other documents that we have not reviewed, but we have been able to use Gen AI in order to review most of them, the majority of them, or even all? I mean, would the client be able to sue us, I mean, and find us liable because having the possibility to use that kind of system, we didn't do it, and then we didn't find the key piece for that advice or for that claim? It's the same in the case of the doctor. I mean, now, I mean, the doctor has the information about this 77% of success of the intervention. I mean, but what if he had decided not to use Gen AI systems, so he missed that piece? I think that in this case, the more the information, the better.
the cost of opportunity. Dimitry, you want to?
Yeah, I find it puzzling when we present people as the most rational and the most clear-minded. This is absolutely not the case. Probably as a son of doctors, I would prefer the artificial intelligence to take that 77% decision, simply because there are doctors who say we believe in God and you will not get an abortion. There are doctors who say we don't believe in pain relief. There are care guys like Mother Teresa who would leave thousands of people lying tortured in their feces, and that's their care. So very much depends on the exact decisions that are taken at an exact moment. And sometimes exposure to humans is torture, even if those humans are sanctified and much loved by the church. So ultimately, very much depends on the context. But of course, in general, I fully agree with you. We cannot present all the instances where human contact is necessary as boring and replaceable. So I think what Concha meant by boring and replaceable was precisely packing things at an Amazon factory or producing those cardboard boxes. There are dozens of thousands of people
Dimitry,
doing this.
Sorry to interrupt you, but there are like initiatives going on, especially on social robotics, to introduce this kind of artifacts to help in assistive contexts, so in healthcare ecosystems, and the arguments provided to do this are that this is gonna enhance and improve the quality of care, because this is gonna give the professionals the possibility to really stop doing these repetitive and boring tasks and really focus on what is valuable from the perspective of care, which could be like this kind of intersubjective communication with a patient and having time with him and so on. And this is nice, and we can buy it. But we can buy it if we are really not aware of the kind of economic system in which we live. I mean, once you have these resources, then maybe it's not gonna be so easy to really keep the professionals to just have a nice conversation with patients, and the robot just carry out the repetitive tasks. That's what I meant, and this is it. And even in the European documents, you find this idea of enhancing the quality of care through social or through assistive robots, which is okay, but then we should really talk about how to do it.
Engage in a conversation. Okay, and we didn't speak about human rights for robots and for artificial intelligence devices, but we have come to an end to the first part of the session. Thank you very much. I think there is enough food for thought for the second part, which will be the debate with our marvelous audience. And let's take a break for a coffee or a tea. Thank you very much. This session, we will resume the session. And the floor, I think we had a very productive and interesting conversation in the first part. Thank you very much for all the panelists. It's been, super interesting. I've learned very much, really, about all these issues related to artificial intelligence, regulation, the ethics, the implementation of artificial intelligence in particular contexts, like in a firm. And of course, we'll always have with us Concha Monje telling us all the difficulties, technical difficulties that the development of artificial intelligence and robots in particular poses. So now is the time for you guys. The floor is open to your questions, comments, remarks. They do not have to be questions, but only comments. I would like to hear your opinions on all this. So who starts? Yeah, Pablo. I think we have a mic because this is being recorded, by the way. Here you go.
Hi.
So regarding what you said about AI becoming like moving from means to agent, what do you think the effect on culture is in terms of can AI generate anything actually original? Can we regard what AI is doing as art? And I guess that or at least the most common argument I've heard about this is like, well, AI actually gathers information from other places, and therefore that cannot be considered art because it's actually being copied. But if you stick to Ortega's views in terms of I'm me and my circumstances, that's kind of like the same. It's kind of like the same argument, isn't it? Like, you're not technically doing anything original in that sense. You're just taking the different inputs that you experience, and you're creating art from that. So, at least in my opinion, you can't really use that argument because of that. To what extent do you think that AI can actually produce something original, and could that be considered art?
Should we start answering, or first we gather some?
I think, why don't we take 2-3 questions, comments, and we is that okay, Pablo? Yeah? Alberto. Mike. Okay, we have another mic.
Another
The first
one.
mic.
Thank you.
Is it working?
Is this working? All right, thank you. Thank you. In 2010, one of the founding fathers of the economic analysis of law, Richard Posner, published a book entitled How Judges Think. And the so-called enfant terrible in the realm of legal books, a review called William Anston published a review on that book entitled How Judges Think When They Do. William Anston always making friends. And so my question is, well, maybe addressed to Mónica and or Professor Pareto, but I think that artificial intelligence is going to change profoundly the legal profession. My point is, don't you think that a human being behind every single legal decision must be required for the introduction of artificial intelligence in the legal profession? Judges, lawyers, and companies, and so forth. Thank you.
Perfect. We can still take one more question, one more comment, one more take. David, maybe? You were staring at me, so...
Well, I didn't think a lot of my point, but it was in progress. But thank you, Professor. Well, I was thinking at the beginning of my reflection was about the more risky professions in the sense of health and others. Potential harm, like, for example, health, safety, fundamental rights. So, which is your point about these risky professions? I mean, it was my point.
So when you talk about risky professions, you're talking about being a policeman or...
Professions at risk.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, professions that are at risk of disappearing because of artificial intelligence. So you're talking about the labor market, basically, no?
Yeah.
Okay, right, perfect. Would like to start?
I can start.
Okay.
Thank you, Paolo, for your question. I think this is a very, very important issue. I don't have any answer on this. First, I would like to say something about the idea of AI as an agent. Of course, we have now this disruption involving systems that can process some information and then doing, like, having an outcome that is useful for some things. the thing is that that does not mean that they have the very same properties that we have. And when it comes to create things, I am not sure, maybe we can also like discuss together, but of course, this is a very good point that you told us that they are always going to the past to make new predictions or to create new things. So this is actually reproducing the past even with variations, and I am not sure this fits the idea we have on authenticity, originality, action even, I would say action as a category, meaning novelty, something that can be created from zero. Still, I think from a philosophical perspective, the question is, why do we care so much about originality? We are in a culture of really what we normally value are nowadays the products, the final things that are created. No, we are very much focused on what we achieve, what we get, and not so much in the process. So we are somehow, or we have come to devaluate a bit the very same process by which we get to something, which has to do with skills, with capacities, with virtues. So we are in an ethics of results, and not so much in an ethics of process. And this is very interesting. When we now are like concerned on the originality of things, I think we are asking about the process and the properties that a process may have to make it valuable, and not only what we get at the end, which you were also telling us, Mónica. Do you care if the movie is not produced by human actors? So why do we care so much? I think this is the philosophical issue we should delve into, and I don't have really an answer for this because it depends on how we approach it.
Actually, if I may.
Yeah.
Sure. The only thing is the mic. Alberto, you had the mic? No, David. Yeah, because this is being recorded. I said 1,000 times this, but I repeat.
So the way I see it, and I guess to develop a little bit in your point, is that the reason why we care so much is because art means nothing in terms of the product. It means in terms of what you want to evoke with it. So like, if I'm writing a novel or I'm painting something, when someone receives that art, they're trying, it's precisely the process what you're thinking of, right? You're thinking of, I don't know, if we talk about Van Gogh and his way of using colors, for example, well, he was half blind. That's relevant to how this is developed. So I guess to me, there is some kind of like essential human condition in order to develop art, because there has to be a thinking being with critical thinking. I guess that kind of like is the point of does AI, think critically, in order for it to be considered art. That would be, I'm kind of answering my own question, but
No,
I guess
I totally agree with you, Pablo.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree with you.
But can I just add something? You know that now artificial intelligence devices, models, create classical music. And I've listened, I'm a classical music lover, Wagner basically, but anyway. It's amazing. It's just amazing. You wouldn't differentiate it from, and it's original.
I know, but the point is that it doesn't matter whether it's original or not, because the whole point of the value of art is in the process. So like, if you create something, let's say someone creates, I don't know, the Mona Lisa. The way I see it, if we're talking about art, and the difference between art made by humans and made by AI, is that there's something behind one and there's nothing behind the other. One is a recollection of things, whereas the other one has that kind of like human component which actually creates art. That's why, to me, that wouldn't be, I guess it can be classical music, it would definitely not be original classical music. I don't know if that makes sense, and I guess I would like to hear everyone's
conversation.
Yeah, but don't you think that when Leonardo painted the Mona Lisa, took inspiration from other artists which made other Mona Lisa? So in this sense, what's the difference between human activity, or the human activity during the process, and generative AI activity during the process? There's no difference at the end of the day.
You, Pablo, you answer
Yeah,
first.
of course. Please fight. I mean, this is, I
I
like
was just gonna
blood,
say,
you know.
like that's the point that I was making with Ortega. Like, yes, when Leonardo is producing something, it's not full original thinking because it's based on previous experiences, him and his circumstances. However, the circumstances are relevant because they are also experienced by the agent itself, whereas AI doesn't experience those inputs by themselves. They just take them on. The interaction with the experience, it's what's lacking. And to me, that's what makes art and makes AI-generated paintings, AI-generated paintings, and not like art. There's a necessary human element to art. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Antonio. I mean, I just wanted to add to Pablo that I think when we think, and this is interesting also because it has to do with the kind of anthropological idea of human beings that we have when developing technology. Also, we used to mirror us as agents. Also, like we are subjects that do things, and this is what we stress the most. And this is why now also we are questioning about creativity, or if they can do this, or they can have rights and duties, and so on. But we kind of, and I agree with Pablo here, we forget the other dimension of human being, with which I think it's more defining even, which is the fact of being a passive subject, a experiencer, like somebody that is affected. And here it comes with the circumstances, right? And I think what we are losing is exactly this, that you can create, more or less, but from this agentive part, but without experiencing anything. This means it does not come with any kind of narrative responsibility of making sense of the world, no? And I think this is what is lost. But that depends if you only value the product at the end, or you value something that has to do with this kind of expanding the way you see things and the complexity of life that is also trained as a human being. And this is what you can end by delegating. And the question is, should we or not should we do this?
Dimitry, you wanted to...
Yeah, what is the added value of AI here? I remember the most basic works on what we're discussing. Walter Benjamin, the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction. We're speaking about the interbellum period, no AI there, but the conversation is exactly the same. And exactly the same conversation is flowing from Borges' art. Remember Pierre Menard, the author of Don Quixote. If the novel really depends on who reads it, and if you can write exactly the same novel twice, but it's a different work of art, and it's not simply reproduction, or Pollock letting buckets of paint fly, is it? What kind of an effort is it, and how calculated is that? So I think we don't come to any answer. And very much depends on the perspectives. And in order to give a sophisticated answer, we need to prepare ourselves. And there's not art theorists, probably this is a misplaced auditorium to hold this kind of conversation. So I disagree with you.
I asked myself.
There is a difference. So like, let me put the example of the white canvas, yeah? The first time it was done, oh, amazing, like this is groundbreaking. Why? Because it was the first person. Why? Because context matters. It's not the same writing Don Quixote in, when was it written? Was it 15th century? Yes. Yeah? Can't remember right now. Anyways, it's not the same writing that now than writing at the time. In fact, the second sex...
Not what Borges thought.
Yeah, well, but
and not what
he may have been
thought as the author of the real Don Quixote.
I know, but he may have been wrong.
That's
like
precisely the beauty of art. If anyone who potentially gives a different perspective is wrong, then we're not really having conversation.
I'm not talking about art in like kind of like a subjective way. I'm talking about it more almost in like in a metaphysical way. What are the requirements of art? What do you need? And the reason why I'm saying that there needs to be a human interaction is because even in the way that we interpret art, there is a human interaction, and the context matters. So an AI doesn't have context, or it has the context. It doesn't have the context of the passive agent. It doesn't have the context of interacting with the reality itself. So that's why I think that if you are talking about art, you need the human kind of like element, because otherwise the context in which something is done is not there, and that's a necessary condition for art. I don't know if that makes sense.
It would be interesting to make an experiment, which would be to see the same work of art, and also the work of art would be exactly the same, and they tell you that in the first case it's done by a human, in the second case it's done by an artificial intelligence device. So, in my opinion, what is important here is the risk of deception, being deceived by who creates the artwork. Maybe we expect that artwork, until now at least, have been created by the humans and maybe would deceive us. Maybe this is a little bit what you are saying, because in this structure that I'm putting, you know, there is no difference. I mean, the outcome would be exactly the same. Maybe the process is not the same, but it has to do with our self-deception. You would be deceived to know that it has been, you know, a robot, an instrument, a thing, and not a human, the one that has done the artwork. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's the same product. If you give me the exact same painting, one is done by a human and the other one isn't, it's not the same product.
That's your point. Okay. Concha.
Yes, I agree with you. But if we, regardless the creative process and the process itself, where the definition of art maybe is not my topic, but when I see a piece of art, a piece of music, for instance, I just feel it. I mean, I don't think of the process of people doing it or creating it. Sometimes I do because I play drums, so I try to, right? But I just feel it. I mean, and if it evokes something special in me, and I get emotional because of that is enough. I don't mind if it is done by an agent or artificial agent or a human agent. So that this is my point. And they're saying that for you, it has a special effect if this is done by a human. For others, maybe it has a special effect if it is done by an artificial intelligence. Because for sure, there are people of any kind, right? So, and for them, it is art, regardless the process, if it is more or less artificial, right? So, this is, as a summary, I would say that, of course, there is a space for a lot of forms of art, and the reason why this is, maybe it is because art is something very abstract, and there are a lot of interpretations of the definition of art and products of art, right? So I think we will combine in the future, now in the present, in our present, it is like this, right? And we will be attending museums with artificial arts or pieces of arts, and the same as attending musical shows played by robots, right? And we will enjoy the same, or not, but there is space for everybody,
no,
right?
The problem with your position is that I don't see how we could get to an agreement here. Imagine that I said, art is not art unless it is done by artificial intelligence. So all that we have had until now is shit, basically. And now we are starting to have real art. Why? Because artificial intelligence deals with many data that not even Leonardo da Vinci could deal with. No. The problem with that is that I don't see how we could get to an agreement about what art is. You know.
Let me put it this way: if I draw a line in a painting, like in fact in a piece of paper, I draw a line, you wouldn't a priori say that that's art, right? When will you say that there is art? In fact, if I give you a white canvas, nothing on it, when will you say that is art? When I paint something on it. Why? Because you're saying, okay, you've done something to it, you've expressed something, you're conveying something. However, if I give you the white canvas and I say this is art, because there is an intention for it to be art, an intention that only humans can have, because it's the only thing that there's the mere intention of it being art is what makes it into art. That's why you need the human component, and that takes into account the context, but nothing is art unless I say so as the artist. Otherwise, it won't be. If I give you a bottle like this, and I give it to you, you wouldn't think it's art. But if I put it in a museum, then it is. So, and the reason why is because of that. It's because there's an intention behind it. Because there's a context. There's a story that narrates what's happening. Otherwise, what's the difference between music and noise, for example? The intention, right? So I think the intention can only be had by humans.
So here I might join Pablo on his take, because somehow maybe the abundance of it created by the artificial intelligence might create some demystification of art. And if we're over-creating art, and if it's art I'm creating by artificial intelligence, you might just kill the art. Period. That's it.
Kill the art? Julia?
I actually agree with them both. I mean, maybe we can reframe it, but we can go into, because maybe Monica wants to say something or add something.
Well, I was thinking about playing devil's advocate in the sense that we have already faced that kind of challenge. You are thinking about big masterpieces in the history of human art, okay? Think about fashion, for example, okay? And let's go back 100, 150 years ago. I mean, tailors were seen as mastercrafts. And they designed suits, pieces of clothing, and they were made by hand. They were considered artists, and it was a kind of art that was...
But nothing has changed?
What?
Nothing has changed?
Not really, because I mean, that was something that was done and was more spread in society. Now, tailors are just, a small group of people, and when we are talking about fashion as art, we are thinking about haute couture. And when we are thinking about clothing now, I mean, you have commoditized it. You don't care if your t-shirt has been made by a human being with a strong experience about the decision on the color of your t-shirt. I mean, you like it, you bought it. That's all. And I'm not comparing, Apollo with, design and t-shirt, but we have shifted a little bit from what happened 150 years ago. So, I understand your point, and I see that, and I want to share it. I really want to share it. I'm afraid of what is going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, as it happens in other aspects of what we used to consider a masterpiece or a piece of art, and that we have no longer done so. We're no longer doing so.
Okay, let's move. You want to add something?
No,
or?
probably the last thing. I think centering everything on humans is so self-fetishizing. I read an interview with the founder of the SETI project who says there are at least 300,000 uncontacted civilizations in the universe. If that is true, and if they make art, then we need to rethink our definitions. And then when I think of all the art the Nazis created, the Soviets created, there is so much trash. So plenty of humans who pretend to be creating art, in fact, are making cheap and distasteful propaganda, like the majority of those tailors tailoring for the peasants, for instance, in the 19th century. God forbid. I know that my tie was printed by Léonard Baudrillard, and it's done by hand, and it gives me pleasure. So in this sense, there is no difference, but it depends on what you choose. You can choose a white canvas on the wall. It's not art, by the way, in accordance to the court decision, because there was a dispute about a guy who claimed 30,000 for making art, and then he returned empty canvases, and he lost. So his property is now being catalogued and will be sold up to 30,000, because it's not up to him to decide what is art. The judge will do it, and basically I think we should be more open-minded.
I wouldn't have thought that we would have jumped into alien art in a workshop on artificial intelligence. Go ahead. Yes, sure.
Just to remark something that you said, you are considering that the artificial agent has no experience, meaning its own experience. There is a human entering the data and training the machine, right?
Not so much that, but that
they can't. This is
perceive.
That's it. This is the point. It is true if you consider that the agent is a computer, right, enabled to perceive. But there are materials, there are intelligent materials right now, able to perceive, to react according to the what is happening in the environment, in a natural way. This is what we call the embodied intelligence. So when you put that material in the surroundings, right, in the environment, and you allow the material to really perceive, and according to the perception, the material can store, can learn, right, and can decide even, and this is a reality, it happens in some materials, right? Then now the agent is like somehow emulating that, like our perception, in its way, of course, but this is a learning process, its own learning process, its own experience, and maybe as a, learning process from that, agent may represent or may give you as a solution, as an outcome, right? Something which is maybe creative, or why not? So we are right now, maybe there is still a lot of things, a trajectory, right, to travel, so that this is really happening. But there are evidences that materials and robots made of those materials, right, can learn autonomously without nobody telling them how to perceive, or it means this. No, it's just a pure reaction, and they even have memory of that. And according to the excitation from the environment, they behave in one way or the other, learning by themselves.
One question, Concha, can we replicate human emotions in artificial intelligence, like fear, love?
Well, we try to. In fact, when we design social robots in the lab, for instance, it's not exactly my topic, but of course my colleagues do that. And yes, they do that. This is mathematics, basically, right? And you try to emulate in a simple way, of course, fear and also natural empathy, yes, for instance, right? And we try to recreate that in real robots. We use simulators, okay, to expose the agent. It's a simulation agent, right, to different stimuli, and we tell the robot how to behave when certain stimuli are in the surroundings, right? And we train them for that particular behavior, right? And once this is trained in the simulator, then we go a step further into the real robot, and we have the robot interacting with people, real people, and trying to see if the robot is accumulating an experience reinforcing that particular behavior or personality, right? But of course, the recreation of fear, love, this is quite difficult. You need a lot of perception and computation too, right? We are far, I would say, from that. But other type of, I would say, more basic needs, we can recreate it.
And would that do, Pablo? Imagine if we got to a stage in which we would be able to replicate perfectly, even better than our own emotions in artificial intelligence. Would that work?
I guess as long as if it's an original fear, so like if I can develop my fear and it's not you saying you should be scared of ants, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have to think about it, but
David, yeah. David, interesting. Yeah, David. Yeah. Wait for the mic.
Thank you very much. What concerns me about AI is basically the possible intellectual property infringements, privacy violations, the current problem of disinformation. So, how does regulation can enforce to protect this? I mean, I'm to be clear that I'm so ignorant in this topic. I'm like a baby in this moment, but yeah.
Yeah, as we are jumping to another question, we had before Alberto's question about the legal field. I fully agree with Alberto that artificial intelligence, I think Mónica would be with us, that it's going to reshape the field, but what do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think that it's going to change the playing field on how we are advising, how we are facing legal problems. And I think that specifically regarding judges, we need to draw, or at least my opinion is that we need to draw a line. In what sense? First, because in general terms, due to the state of technology, Gen AI is not at the moment to replace lawyers or to replace judges, but it might be. They are talking a lot about general AI, okay, it's supposed to be the next step for after generative AI, and who knows what about that. My point here is that even though we imagine that we create the perfect legal large language model using, like say the best refined data, Harvard best class legal program, so it is, imagine, let's do a little bit of sci-fi, the best legal LLM. Right now, technology is very bad as assuming risk. To make a decision against the odds. It's like the example that Antonio made about the doctor. And I think that what we are going to face at the first instance, rather than, or other than, the way we do certain tasks, the way we draft our documents, is what is at the essence of the legal profession. What is a lawyer? What does lawyer serve for? And please don't answer for nothing. It could be an answer, but I don't agree. In the sense that I would like to see lawyers as not as paper churners, document producers and things like that, but as people that go along with the client and take risk with them. And for me, this is something that yet technology is not prepared to do. And regarding judges, the use of technology poses, for me, a more interesting question. That is, why we rely on a man or on a woman to decide about a legal case. In the sense that, what are we aiming for? We're aiming for the perfect legal solution, in the sense that, you have all the facts, so you reach, let's say, the more justice outcome, okay? Or we are talking about something more profound, that is, where we are talking about democracy, and we are talking about that we are conferring the right to decide about the fate of other human beings to another man or to another woman, because that is at the bottom or at the foundations of democracy. For me, even if we arrive to general AI, there is something inherent that is, related to, something like the concept of what democracy and the separate of powers are, that would, I would not say forbid, but would be a main objection to letting Gen AI to, ruling or to decide about a case law.
We're not only talking about lawyers, but also talking about judges. And if I am not wrong, in the artificial intelligence wrongly called act, the use of artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence devices for judging purposes is categorized as a high risk.
Yeah, it is.
But we're exposed to it all the time. I use Uber all the time, so I never take public transport other than Uber. And sometimes drivers misbehave. And then you speak with the chatbot, and the chatbot decides whether you get your money back, whether the driver gets fired, whether your ranking stands. And the same when you speak with airlines, and the same when you speak with your bank. Sometimes when you're being used. And these are overwhelmingly important matters. So I think the AI judging is already with us. All this chatbot communication is already with us, and we will not run away from it. So when we speak about judges, very often we think about constitutional courts, etc. Those guys are usually absolutely irrelevant in the majority of systems. Nobody cares about what they have to say. Nobody reads, besides like the elite law firms read that. But ordinary people don't care. What ordinary people care about is basic petty justice and petty cases. And in this sense, it's interesting to look at the local bar reports about the basic qualification of those pedestrian, the most lowly paid, the worst educated lawyers in the world. You go to the middle of Nebraska, and you have an issue about a garage. Who will solve that? You will have the worst legal representation in front of the least qualified person you will ever encounter in the world. I mean, probably some other guys in the courtroom will be as poorly qualified, but normally it's misery. So those people don't know the law, and they're frequently not on your side. So then, and there were studies made in terms of whether someone would benefit basically by scrapping these lawyers who are incapable of performing their tasks and who are not debarred because of mistake, because of omission. And there are plenty of lawyers like this. And probably we're all better off. And now the last point, the counterpoint to myself, there is superb research from Yale, Professor Tom Tyler, who looks at what judges are for. And he's a sociologist slash psychologist. And his idea is that the day in court is not about winning, it's about regaining dignity. So his research shows that after an elaborate due process of law, someone is pleased to lose, because it's a totally different sense compared simply to losing money, losing social position, etc., without any explanation and without an elaborate engagement. So it's the engagement that matters. And if that is true, then probably AI will not help us at that level.
Alberto wanted to react, I think, or add something.
Well, I do agree with Monica's reflection and also with Dimitry's reflections. Well, justice, beauty, equity, are related to values. So, and values mean judgment, which is really a human action. So, in fact, we are, or at least I am unable to understand justice, beauty, which is art, without a real interaction with my fellow human beings. So, I can't understand justice and or beauty without this. So this is not the interaction between a robot or a machine or a hardware with a human being, but the interaction among humans.
Yesterday I got $57 from Uber, and I was very pleased. And the decision was taken.
Right, but this is not an interaction between one human and another one.
The driver was.
No, it's not. I don't think this is a real interaction. I mean, this is a mandate.
The money is on my account.
Yeah, but the realm of values is the realm of a judgment. This is art because this is beauty. This is law because this is related to justice or equity. This is my point.
What you are saying is a little bit the same that Pablo was, a similar argument, no? I mean, judging is about has to have a human element. However, the work that Cass Sunstein is doing on precisely he's comparing and giving data about the effectiveness or efficiency in terms of results of artificial intelligence judges and human judges. The outcome and the conclusion is clear. We should better rely on artificial intelligence judges because they make less mistakes. How about that? This is a little bit your point, no?
We have already abolished the death penalty in Europe, so we can stay with humans. Americans should definitely switch to robots.
Let's see what they do.
No, I was about to just to add that, I mean, I agree that in some cases it is better a good AI than a bad human. I can agree with that. But Julia mentioned it before, we need to be a little bit careful on measure everything in terms of efficiency, on the precise, of the results. Because if we're talking about efficiency, and of course, I mean, there are smart contracts, there are legal chatbots that can solve, I mean, easy claims on money, applying easy rules. But I mean, sometimes, I mean, it is all about nuances and context. And right now, technology, at least Gen AI, is very bad at that. And also, we're talking about, and I'm going to be a little bit demagogic about that, but I mean, let's an algorithm to decide which is the better government. Why not? If we're talking about just a better result, I mean, let's examine the candidate. So why to vote? I mean, we need to be a little bit careful on just using only efficiency. I mean, I'm all about efficiency. I mean, I work at a law firm.
You sound anti-EU.
Okay, David was asking basically about the labor market. I think that is an important point here when it comes to robots and artificial intelligence. So basically, he was asking about the most risky professions or jobs. What do you think? I mean, is artificial intelligence, robots going to in what, 40, 50 years time? Maybe this is a question above all for you.
Well, of course, so far.
Are we gonna get to a totally leisure society in which we just have fun and robots work?
The experience tells us, right, already that when the task is very repetitive, there is no maybe creativity in it, right? You can replace the human and put the machine to do the task, and this is a reality, right? There are many kind of works already being replaced, the human being replaced there by the machine. But the thing is that artificial intelligence mainly, right, somehow is finding the way, right, of doing more and more and more things, right, that a human could also do, right, which is not a bad thing. I think it is a good thing. And then, of course, we have to assume that these particular tasks will be replaced or will be done by an agent, an artificial agent. And probably very well done. Otherwise, the solution will not be implemented. This is clear, right? So I cannot say which kind of professions or, right? It's difficult for me. But I think we should redefine a profession, maybe, and not talk about professions, but about tasks, right? Kind of tasks, right? Because a profession, they share, a lot of professions share somehow the same type of tasks. And there are a lot of tasks, more and more and more and more every day, that can be replaced or can be done by an artificial intelligence, right? By a software, right? So where is the limit? I don't know. Probably we will see in, I don't know, a decade, right? So my answer or my reflection about this is, okay, we have to assume that we should be prepared not to do the same thing all the time. It's not just that I do this degree or this in the university and that's all. No, you have to keep studying and learning in a continuous mode, right? So that you are prepared. Using artificial intelligence tools, you have to be an expert on that. This is a reality. You should at least know how they work, and you have to be an expert, I would say, using them, right? And be prepared for changing all the time, right? This is key, I think. We have to integrate that knowledge in the current knowledge, right? So to be prepared, I mean, and also to contribute. What we see, for instance, in my master in the university, right? Connected industry, right? Full of robots and machines deciding and automating all process in the industry, right? What that industry requires for the personnel working there is the creativity. How to improve the process, not just to automate the process, but how to make it in a better way, right? This is something that so far the machines cannot decide, right? So it is that particular human aspect that will allow us to be the first one before the machine, right?
Economically could provoke an increase on productivity and creating new jobs related to
Yes.
these new materials.
Yes, of course.
Industry 4.0, I think it's what you mentioned, which is more connectivity
Yes.
in industries, in factories, and
Mhm.
that's interesting.
That's it. And regarding progress and how because we are speaking about artificial intelligence as a very good tool, everybody needs to implement it, or otherwise you are losing track, and so on, so on, so on. And but in order for an artificial intelligence to be efficient, there is an energy consumption there behind. We have to take that into account. It's not just that cost zero, right? It's not just that this company, I have to pay 1 million, right? So that I can use the artificial intelligence ad hoc for my purpose, right? It's not only that. We have to take into account the impact of training an artificial intelligence on the environment. The consumption of CO2, right, is huge for any single training phase, right? Nobody speaks apparently about this, right? So the considerations are a lot of them. I mean, it's not just cost and my rentability. No, there are other things, right? How it impacts on the environment, legal issues, ethical issues, and so on, right?
It reminds me to solar panels, which implies a benefit-cost analysis, and it is not only to say to a society it could save energy, but otherwise it could have an impact on the environment.
Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah. There is a balance, so it's we have to view all the yes,
different dimensions.
the different dimensions.
But
that's it.
You know, the energy consumption she's speaking about is tremendous. It's beyond.
I have the data here. I checked that. It's one training phase of a system as GPT, right? Emits an amount of CO2 equivalent to one car traveling 700. Sorry, I can't read anything here.
Miles or kilometers?
Yes, 1,000 kilometers.
1,000, yeah.
700,000 kilometers. So it's a lot, right? Just one training phase of GPT.
Yep.
Not to mention that the computer that you need is huge. You need a cooling system, contaminating a lot. Oof. So it's very expensive. Environmentally speaking, right?
Would you like to jump in?
I would like to first ask if we can afford this, and for what
the planet can afford this.
I mean, and I think you were going to this direction. Sorry, we should really take into account that taking accountability for technological development has to do with balancing the
yes,
costs,
always.
also in these terms. And you were talking about solution that if it, for instance, if it does not work properly, then you cannot solve the problem. Which problem? Have we really defined the problems that we need to solve technologically or not? Because maybe we should engage in
Yes, I agree.
why not put exoskeletons for repetitive things or very hard things in the healthcare context? Maybe, I know there are some more degrees that can be achieved technologically speaking, but you can do that with an exoskeleton. You don't need a social interactive robot, maybe in all the situations, no? Maybe you just need more humans. And also I am a bit concerned about something you said, but I cannot develop it now because really I think it needs from philosophical grounding, and I will do that for sure. But, and it's the idea of somehow replacing professions for tasks. Like forgetting about professions and just like assuming that we are gonna develop tasks in isolation.
No. Well,
because
I mean,
this is the disintegration of the human activity.
Yeah,
which
I
actually
agree.
is
Yeah.
The context at which instruments should serve at.
I totally agree with you.
And activities, and this is Pablo, what was, I think now
Yes.
I got what Pablo was saying actually, and I mean, I can explain it. You were concerned about the internal goods of the very same activity. I mean, activity, so human activities, you can either thought them like in functional terms, like doing something or something that enables you to train something or have some kind of abilities that are internal to that activity and have value by themselves. And you cannot get them with other activities.
Yes.
And then there are also like goods that are external to the activities, which come with the activity, but that are external. And if we confuse both and we pursue the external goods of the activity, meaning economic solvents or anything, and forget about the internal goods, then we are lost.
No. I totally
and
agree.
that happens with care. For instance, we can go this direction, no? And we start fragmenting care and thinking, no, care has nothing to do with helping these people getting dressed or engaging socially while eating. Eating has to do with nutrition, and then the social part of care is somewhere else. And where is it exactly? I mean, at the end, you blur all the lines.
Yes, I agree.
So I am a bit concerned about this idea of fragmentation, which, by the way, is in line with the industrial development of technology.
No, but I totally agree with you. I mean, I was meaning that thinking about which profession will be replaced or done by a... No, it's not the whole profession. Meaning that that profession you are involved into, right, you will have tasks that could be replaced or not by...
How do you define
I don't know, but it's not the whole profession that is done automatically by a robot or an artificial intelligence. I mean, this is what I mean. And I agree with you that maybe that task that is replaced has an important effect or meaning in the global idea of that profession, of course. Of course it has an effect. I don't doubt that. But I was just meaning that we usually talk about professions disappearing. Well, we will have to redefine that concept in the sense that in all professions there will be tasks that of course may be replaced or can be replaced or done by a computer or whatever. And then it doesn't mean that it has no effect on the rest. Of course it has,
and
right?
I agree. And even if you can really outsource the task sometimes,
Yeah.
rationally speaking, you can say, no, this of course I can delegate that.
Yeah.
But there is also like it also mediates the way you perform that task. And it has also an impact on the way, for instance, an interaction. So
yeah, I
if
agree.
I use a computer to measure something, I am not looking at the patient's eyes, for instance.
Yes.
And this can have a meaning for the patient.
Of
Even
course.
if of course, the computer can calculate better than me the blood pressure or anything. So it's not that we don't have to introduce these things, but we have to be very aware of the fact that the thing that you introduce may change everything, even if it's...
It is a small one. The impact always have to be, it has to be addressed before taking the... or implementing the solution.
But for this, we have to have this kind of arguments.
With Dimitri's example, we are just not doing it. I mean, it's true that your chatbot, the one that worked for you, because it gave you back.
If it wouldn't, I wouldn't praise it.
So we are.
But I think, can I give some counter examples? Of course, there are professions that die. There are no hussars. There are no lift boys. There are plenty of valuable professions, and I think it's great that they're dead. This is simply liberating people and liberating us of the profession and those people of the task. Of course, it's valuable to press the buttons. I've even seen a lift boy in the Claridges recently, so they exist. But these are the best, probably. It's like you can still be a horse. The shit in the streets was the main problem in Paris in the end of the 19th century. No, there is none. Bingo. I'm very happy about it. I have no problem with my Uber. But then recently I visited Tervuren, and my friend arrived on horseback. It's right in the Royal Gardens. No problem with that. This is probably an exceptional, overwhelmingly successful exercise of that profession of horse riding that keeps the value which otherwise society has lost. A seamstress for Dior is the same. Not everybody has to be a blinded Filipino girl, child labor, etc. There are also dignifying elderly ladies in France who will produce valuable garments. So everything will get split. And I think I agree with your earlier point that probably certain classes in our society will be consuming one kind of product, a human-produced product, which is already the case. And other classes of society will be producing a different kind of product. But this is the 1920s discussion. Should we go to the theater? Should we go to the movies? Now we all go to the movies. Sometimes.
What's another question here? Over here. Yeah. Can we have the mic, please? was first.
I have more of a comment on what we're saying.
Okay.
I agree with Julia, and I think that something that's been disregarded in this conversation is the fact that artificial intelligence is not automatically flattening societal inequalities. So what we're saying that profession can be replaced are gonna be the middle level tasks. So what are these people gonna do? Because society and their condition probably cannot lead them to higher position, intellectual position that are not going to be replaced.
Totally.
So I think that this is something that also have to be addressed in this conversation.
This is the impact that I said before. It has to be addressed because, of course, those people would need training, retraining to be able to
But it's hard for
it's
someone
very hard,
like
very
that
hard.
maybe does not
Yes.
have access to university to say, okay,
Yeah,
I
no,
cannot
no, no.
become an expert
Yes.
in artificial intelligence.
I
But
agree.
Should we build our society around the needs of the incapable, who cannot retrain them and who are burden on us? There are also other models of organizing our well-being. Look at Dubai, for instance. You lost a job, you are deported. And that's also a viable model. I mean, I would not organize Spain on that model, but it is viable. And then if someone needs care, they import a caregiver from the place where that valuable work is available and will be done by a human. And they don't think about replacing that kind of job with a robot. So ultimately, what we're discussing here, applied to Europe and applied to the US, also has this racist and former colonial privilege extension, because by replacing some people with technology, we use that technology also as a justification for not opening the border for those who will need that miserable salary much more than the majority of the members of our own societies who are here and who are now. So I think if we look at the world as a whole, there can be a slightly different conversation about the same.
Yeah.
Because it's related. Yeah, but
he's a tough negotiator.
But then I disagree with what you said, because then it goes all against our democratic values that we're so proud of in Europe.
But it's just a different example. So there is not only Europe in the world. That's my message.
Yeah, of course.
Different societies solve their problems differently. So there are other ways to solve problems.
Yeah, but to me, there's a European perspective. So, but to me, it is better to solve the issues related to AI in a democratic way. So, thinking about the people who are at the bottom of society as well, rather than expelling them as they do in Saudi Arabia. I don't want the EU in 50 years, in a 50-year time, to be more similar to Saudi Arabia personally. This is why I would try to also keep in mind these issues with AI.
Sure, go ahead. I think, with all respect to the European values, the EU is much worse than Saudi Arabia at this point, or at the lightest degree. Because if you look at the death toll in the Mediterranean, the torture of people on the eastern border, only the EU tortures and kills at the periphery, not inside. So we don't have many beheadings, but we have 28,000 death toll of those who are drowning because of our policy, which is very carefully orchestrated and well organized. Which means that the EU is a killing machine, but we don't see it. And I would be the last person to claim that this killing machine is democratic, because I have never voted for it. And there will be no way for me to vote Ms. von der Leyen out on the ground that I think it's wrong to kill 28,000 black people over the last 8 years, because not a single white person, of course, drowns in the Mediterranean as a result of Frontex activities, etc. So we need to take that into account. You cannot be in a cocoon, in a bubble, throwing around the words like democracy and pretending that the world is better off as a result, while you know that you kill plenty of the dispossessed, and this is vital part of the operation of your democracy.
But then whenever we tackle a social issue, we should take into consideration that, that our objective, our goal is to respect these dispossessed people.
Well, we killed 28,000 of the...
Yeah, but the solution, but the solution to me, is to try to improve that situation. It's not to say, you know, in Saudi Arabia, they do that as well, and you can follow the method.
No, they don't kill anyone at the border.
No, they
That's
expel
the
them.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I gave it as a positive.
But sorry, but you cannot justify, sorry, but I mean, this is a fallacy to ground what should be done on something that already happens and say, because it happens like this, it's the same, like, it's better like having a better, good AI system than a bad human. I mean, the fact that we have bad humans going on and doing things does not allow us to justify something just on this very same basis. I mean, we should be dealing with other kind of perspectives, no?
I agree.
Like
Yes,
ideas,
yes.
like this happens, but I'm not gonna take this as a justificatory basis to do this, which is also bad, but you see, I mean, it's even
That's why,
better.
although Spain is a monarchy as well, I'm not arguing for taking more over from Saudi Arabia.
With a monarchy, I don't say anything because I'm Catalan and then we can end very bad here. So,
we're talking about artificial intelligence today.
but yeah.
Okay, so just to close on this topic, I'm more or less in the middle, so of course we have to take care of people, but we cannot stop technological development because people will lose job, because always people will lose job when we have...
That was precisely what I wanted to say.
Yeah, it's normal. When we created the tractor, then people in the field losing job. Then when we created the car, then people riding horses to carry people lose job. When we created the, I don't know, computer, people typing on the writing machine lose job. So you have to always look at the long run, and so you will always have this. So we cannot stop technological progress for this. So going to my question, I have a lot of questions, but I will only ask one because otherwise we... So my question was related with decision making and responsibility of AI, and I wanted to propose this example, which is typical in the when you talk about AI. And so if there is, for example, there is a person driving an automatic car, no? So the car is going along, it's going alone. So, yeah, on its own, because it's automatic, it's driven with artificial intelligence. But I don't know, he's sleeping, you don't care because the car is going alone. And then there is a children that cross the road. You cannot stop the car because you're going very fast. So the car, the artificial intelligence has to decide if to go on and kill the children or if to turn, going to the wall and kill the person inside the car. So how do you take the decision? Who is responsible of taking the decision of killing the children or the guy in the car?
It is the human programming the artificial intelligence that decides, right? The rules. If this happen and this happen and this happen, and if not, you program, you organize the ideas, right? The preferences, and the car will do as it is programmed to do. This is the reality. In any case, the car is not responsible for that.
We were talking about legal personality, so we can also give artificial intelligence, so the car in this case, a legal personality, because in your case, of course, this is how it works, but then the engineer that programmed the car, it's always responsible, because there will always happen something against the willing of everybody, so the engineer is always responsible of everything, no?
Of course it is. Because in fact in 16, I don't know if you know this, but in the European Union there was a commission, right, that decided to study the concept of electronic person. Do you know this? It started in 2016. And the idea was revolving around this issue. What happens if the singularity comes, meaning a machine, artificially created, eventually had the capacity to decide, right, on its own, and taking decisions that escape from the programmer's, mind. I don't know exactly how this machine could decide this, because I didn't program the machine to do this, right? So this is the singularity thing. And in that case, then, this should be considered that machine as an electronic person meaning that it has rights and obligations, right? And they were discussing a lot on this, because that moment may be it will come in a future, right? And the final conclusion was to stop thinking or to stop trying. Yes, I think it was a year ago they decided to stop the commissioning of discussing this, because there were a lot of more and more open issues there. Like, okay, so if you have the obligation to, right, if it is the machine that did or commit the crime, right, then how to support financially that people, the family of that person who was killed by the machine, and blah, 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 blah. It was difficult, right? But it is already an issue which is in the society, and there was a commission, right, addressing that. And of course, I think in a short time they will retake this and they will try and find a solution, at least to rule somehow what to do. But so far, their responsibility is maybe on the maker, on the programmer, right, on the seller, right, but not on the machine, right?
I wouldn't play too
on the user, because I don't know if you know that case of a Uber car killing a woman crossing the street with a bicycle on her side. And if you go to the final solution of the case, right, they said it was the driver who was watching a TV movie while driving. He shouldn't have been doing this, because the machine is not intelligent enough to really drive on its own, because the level of technology in that case is not reached yet, right? So it is a clear conclusion that you cannot trust the machine when it is not as intelligent as the human being. The perception failed and a lot of things failed.
Yeah, I wouldn't push. I wouldn't me particularly push too hard that example that you mentioned. Because we could simply apply penal law here. And in penal law, we all studied when we were doing law that there is no alternative. You cannot kill the children. If you do kill the children and do not turn and maybe kill the pilot, the person who is in the car, you can be prosecuted for homicide. So that is solved in penal law. A different matter is whether it contradicts certain deontological principles that the machine has to follow. But if we just apply what we have, that wouldn't be a real problem. There are other problems that are not probably solved. The one that I mentioned about the doctor, that is not probably solved, correct me if I'm wrong, in the area of liability, okay? But in that particular case you are mentioning, we are I think there is a lot of noise, and exaggeration in this field of artificial intelligence. Penal law tells you what to do. You have to kill the person who is in the car. You have to turn at least, and not kill the children.
But then the engineer is responsible for killing the pilot.
Sorry?
The engineer that programmed the car is responsible for killing the pilot.
No, I mean, it's responsible for addressing the right solution. The wrong solution would be to order the car, the artificial intelligence in the car, to kill the children.
Why is the right solution to kill the pilot?
It is the right solution. Why? Because, this standard penal law tells you that.
I don't understand.
Of course, yeah, sure, here. Yeah, so...
Yeah, it depends, yeah, of course.
Well, but also, I'm
not saying it's an easy solution to take. I'm not saying, but it's solved. I mean, there are thousands of sentences from Spanish courts, for example, telling you that what you should do in those situations. So it's when you see someone with a bicycle, and this is why you've seen it, in the road. The car does like this, almost a detour, that try not to hit, to get closer, to the guy in the bicycle. It's because we all know that you would be prosecuted for homicide. And maybe this is wrong or right, but this is the state of the art right now. So, some cases are more fictitious than others, I think.
For example, as we use at work now, AI, ChatGPT, is like you're as engineering using ChatGPT as a translator, for example, at work to work faster, but also the bot is dangerous because it can take over all the work of a department. It's very good to make faster all the process, but at the same time, also there has to be a person controlling that bot because it can work on its own, like, well.
Yes, the human factor, the human presence should always be there. And in fact, the law, correct me if I am wrong, tell you that. If you don't agree with the machine decision, you always can require the assistance of a human in all the processes, of course, right? Yes. Just one thing. We are speaking about the correct solution, like killing the child or not, right? But even if this is the purpose, the perception of the situation counts. I don't want to kill the child, but I have perceived the situation in one way, different from the machine, but different from another human driver. So and we have to take that into account, right? So even if the rule is the same for everybody, and for sure, I think that if you suddenly feel the case or this happens to you, you will correct in a reflex mode, right? You will do this. You would avoid crashing, right? In that case, it's quite difficult to really reasoning anything, right? But the machine also has to do that, right? And the way of perception of the machine is different from our way. So we have also to take that into account. Maybe, even if the intention is not to kill the child, the final solution or the result is different, but because of the perception, simply, right? So we have to take that into account too.
Just to, to end up what I just said, I mean, I would agree with you in terms of not penalizing morals. Penal law is not the whole world of morals, okay? We have morals outside penal law. I agree with you. But in that particular case you are mentioning, it's solved. Other cases maybe are not solved, but that particular example is solved. Okay, Lucia.
Yeah, I just wanted to open up a new debate, so I just want to make sure that everyone...
We just have a couple of minutes, but
yeah,
go on, please.
Because Concha pointed out the topic about gender, and I'm particularly interested in it because I found out that all boys AIs like Alexa, Siri, they all have female names, and you use them to command, so play music or change the TV, whatever. So I think this is a topic we should all be aware of, because this is just another, I don't know how to say, but just another thing to deal with feminism, because I think that AI can both help us overcome inequalities, but in this case and some other cases, we can see that it can affect and make us dive deeper on inequality. So my question was do you think that AI will help women to achieve more equal positions, labor market, socially, whatever, or it will show us, in this case with commands, will make us go back and to the past?
So gender equality and artificial intelligence in just 3 minutes.
I'm going to be very brief, and I'm very sorry to say that AI is biased, because it has been trained through data, millions of data, based on the human history, on our legacy history. So unfortunately, it's biased. The attempts to minimize this bias has been a failure. I'm sure that you have been, you are familiar with the examples of prompting of, I can't remember, it was Gemini, I think it was Gemini, like producing, please, pictures of beacons from the 5th century, and it came out with pictures of beacons, from diverse minorities, from a historical point of view, made absolutely no sense because it was, I mean, they tried to compensate that bias. So I think that this is something that we need to figure out when we are training algorithms and when we are interacting as well with artificial intelligence.
But I mean, like in this case, it's actual engineers that are putting the name to these machines. It's not just the database.
And also the physical appearance also has something to do with this. Depending on the role that they develop, if you put a female resemblance, it actually reinforces kind of stereotyping which roles are associated to whom. So
yes,
this is a big issue here, yeah.
It is, especially in Asia, for instance, if you see the examples when they create a new robot, exactly the same technology as the male and female robot, right? You can see that for presentation of the male robot, that robot performs very robust tasks, very creative even tasks, whatever. And when they present the female robot, it's like a cheerleader, right? No, this is true. You can see the demonstrations and the presentations, right? So it depends a lot on the country, right? And they reproduce on the machines the same bias that they use in real life, right? But this being true, we also have to take something into account. When we develop a robot for a purpose, right? It is a reality that men and women performs better, right, or different, but better in some situations or in some applications. And sometimes you take that information into account when deciding the name and the physical appearance of the robot, right? For instance, I don't say that I agree with it, but this is a reality. If it is a caregiver, right, the fact that this is a female robot contributes to the trusting the caregiver, and this is a reality. Or if you, for instance, want to invest on something, this is a machine trying to convince you to invest on something. It is also demonstrated that if it is a women's voice, you are more confident. I don't know why, maybe it remembers or it recalls you of your mother or whatever, but trust has to do with it. But if the task is related to security, safety or whatever, physical one, you prefer that machine you interact with to have a male appearance or male voice. And it is a reality. This is something happening in real life, and we want the robot to really succeed in the performing. So we try to replicate those models that we think are really successful, even if it is not exactly what we should be doing. But there are decisions behind based on the real experimentation with humans, right? And how we relate men and women in real life, right?
Well, we have to finish here. I would say that biases in general terms, both regarding the robotic side, but also the artificial intelligence, is like the most important challenge, I would say, in terms of, in the area of artificial intelligence, because I do not, and I discuss a lot in my project in Solaris with the mathematicians that we have, how to deal with the big data, how to de-bias the biases that you instill in artificial intelligence. That's very tricky. That's really very tricky. So my worry here is that we would not only replicate the biases that we all have in societies, but even increase them. And that risk is an important risk. A risk, by the way, which is not taken care of in the AI regulation. But anyway, thank you very much for your presence here.